Hello, welcome back. My name is Rashida, and this week what we're going to do is we're going to continue our conversation about cybersecurity threats. This time around, we're going to be talking more about basic cyber attacks and attack vectors. First thing we're going to talk about is insider threats that are coming from within our organization. Employees or members of our network may be involved. The exploit of our vulnerabilities by outside cyber criminals for some type of financial gain. The threat of cyber terrorism is related to a political agenda. Advanced persistent threats will be able to get into the network and could remain undetected for several weeks or even like a few months. Like they'll just kind of sit and hang back in between the codes. And unless you know what's going on, you're not going to be able to understand. Script kiddies, they're kind of less experienced hackers who have known to download programs and scripts from outside sources. And then we have hacktivists. They're more individuals who use the internet to attack networks that kind of at will for ideological purposes. They're kind of basing off of if the person is either good or evil, what's right, what's wrong. Like that's how they go about their hacking choices. Threats and vulnerabilities to our organization's networks. It's necessary to identify the vulnerable parts of our system that are subject to attack. This could be misconfigured firewall or a faulty piece of code leaving a backdoor open for an attack to take place. It is possible that the threat itself could affect someone or something within our network, which could cause a lot of damage to a system as a whole. There are a number of threat actors who are responsible for cybersecurity incidents that occur within the network to exploit vulnerabilities within the system. We're kind of like basically how I had these slides set up is how, kind of in like a hierarchy order. And I chose hacktivists to be the first one to kind of describe because they would be an uncommon attacker for our hospital. It may be more effective to use something like they'll probably use denial of service attack to crash the network entirely by just overloading it. It is possible that the infamous Trojan horse could be a tool they might use. It's a famous malware that's been around for years. What it'll do is it'll enter the system by someone clicking on something in an email or a text or anything and potentially installing the malware, which would crash the system. Script kiddies may also use the same type of tool to damage the system. In other words, the virus could enter the system just so the script kiddie can gain some sort of reputation among like their other hacker peers, or they're solely just doing it because they can. It's just a mere thrill of knowing that they could do it is enough for them to do it. What they'll do is they'll gain enough information, like passwords and user login information, like just so that they know that it's kind of like they're testing the waters out on their hacking skills. Advanced persistent threats are more eavesdropping tools, hacker tools. These attacks are more inside the system. Monitoring network traffic with their programs and other software gives them access to data and information. SQL injection attack is a similar since it sends what is known as which is known as like a bad code to the server and retrieves information that they would not normally have access to. Typically, cyber terrorists use a man-in-the-middle kind of attack to gain information. So what they will do is they'll sit between a supposed secure transmission to get as much information as possible from both the sender of the information and the receiver of the information. DNS spoofing occurs when users on the network visit a website that they believe is authentic. But it's just another way to gain information to cause damage to the network. In contrast, cyber criminals are becoming more prominent threat to our organization due to their desire for financial gain. We kind of face these threats more often. With these type of threats can generate more often because we have a great deal of income coming in and out of the hospital. Phishing is a common attack. It is usually done via email, text, or phone call, where they're trying to entice you to click on a link to reply to a text, email. They want you to download a program that contains malware to gather private information. Their goal is to basically steal credit card numbers, bank information, anything else they could gain for a financial purpose. Another type of attack, another type of software-based attack is ransomware. What they do is they will hack into the system and kind of shut everything down until their demands are kind of met. Like, it could be they'll ask for a certain amount of money. If they don't get a certain amount of money, then your system will continue to be down. Insider threats pose the greatest threat to the hospital. This is a concern not just for us, but for a lot of any type of business or organization that operates on a network of any kind. The threats could come from inside, either intentionally or unintentionally. Whether the attack is malicious or not, it could literally come from anyone. It could be from a person who really is trying to do some malicious intent, where what they'll do is they're trying to pretend to be someone who they're not. Basically, like, they'll try to escalate their permission, but they're looking for somebody who's like a root user or an admin. They'll try to get their password in order to see, what type of information they can gain, which is also called a privilege escalation. They might not be, or it could be the latter, where they might not be a person who has any type of malicious intent, but what they'll do is they're not they don't pay attention to where they leave their private information. Like, they'll probably write down the password somewhere, and they wrote it down because they might forget it later on. So what they'll do is they'll just write it on a piece of paper, and leave it on top of their workspace. But still, like, that's still considered an insider threat, because even though the employee is not trying to have the network shut down or have any type of security breaches, but the fact is they're leaving their password out in the open for just anyone to come by and see. What we have to do as a whole, we just need to ensure that we are taking steps to keep our information safe, that we are keeping a vigilant eye out for malicious malware, as well as other attacks that could affect our hospital's network as a whole. We need to be vigilant and watch our steps in the process of avoiding phishing attempts, ransomware, whaling attacks, et cetera, any type of attack that could mess up our system. We cannot leave out, passwords or secure login information or any type of patient information. We have to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and enjoy the rest of your evening.